6 years ago, I found myself in this room, a small room without window. It's like one laptop, and it's a very small, just like this size, maybe a bit bigger, with these two guys with crazy hair, right? And I don't know what I'm doing in that room with these two guys. So I don't know if you know that guy's name. That's Kylie Young, and that's my friend Fadil, right? So we were in this room. I just met Kylie. He was a stranger. I don't know him back then. So we just met during an event, and they said, "Hey, let's try to build an app together," right? So that's how over the Saturday we make use of my current office, which is in my room without window, and decided, hey, let's try to build this app. Right? And Kylie talked about these new things that I haven't heard before. It's called Agile, right? And then say, do you have a whiteboard? I say, yeah, I have a whiteboard. So we put up a whiteboard up there, and then you draw something looking like that, right? Okay, you probably don't understand what's written there, so I'm going to translate it for you. So we just write to do, doing, done, right? And then we have stack of post-it notes that we use, right? And then he pulled up his laptop and then showed me an Excel file full of mockups, right? If you guys are familiar with what mockup is, it's just like how a screen of the web application should look like, right? So he built everything in this Excel file, right? And then we start to sit down together and decided, okay, what actually we want to build, right? So we start to list down things that we want to build, right? And then we put it in to-do part. This is completely new to me. I never heard of these Agile things before, right? So there's a bunch of things that put inside the to-do part, and then when we start working on it, we move it to doing, and then once it's done, we put in done, and then Kylie would test it out, and if it works, then we take it out. If it doesn't work, then we're just going to start doing it again, right? And then throughout the process, I found out that this is a very natural process, because then we could negotiate about the things that we're going to build. So it's not just like, it's telling me, hey, build this, right? And then that's it. It's more like, hey, let's build this. Okay, let's think about this. Do we really want to rebuild this? What actually we want from this, right? So there's a lot of question and answer going on every time we want to start building something, right? So at the end of the day, we start this early morning. So it took us like 8 hours to actually build this product, right? And by the end of the day, we launched the product, right? And to be fair, my hair was actually big too back then. So no offense to them, right? And yeah, it took us 8 hours from walking up to actually launch a product, right? I want to assume that people here actually startup founders that want to launch a product. So you actually do something like this, right? You can actually go work together with the developers. So just 3 of us, right? 2 developers and 1 product guy, and actually launch a product within 8 hours, right? The product was called Youthsays. It's a fail. I don't really call it. It's a fail. It's one of the learning experience developing a product. But we actually did launch. Obviously, there's a bunch of bugs after that because you move too fast. It's high quality. But yeah, the point I'm trying to put across is that you could actually do this, right? There's no need to wait like 3 months or 6 months or 1 year to actually launch a product, right? You could actually launch something within 8 hours. Or if you're familiar with hackathon, then you would see that you could actually launch a product within 24 hours, right? All you need is just some clear mind, a lot of communications going on, people really understand what the product is, and then you could actually launch the product. So this is what happened 6 years ago. And then few years after that, we built this thing called Groupsmore.com. We built it within 3 weeks, and then we launched it. Now it's called Groupon.my, right? It's bought up by Groupon. So this is another example at how you can actually quickly launch an app, right? First in 8 hours, and in this like 3 weeks. So I'm gonna get back to why we are here. So we're gonna talk about how to ship product fast, right? But first, what actually you want to talk about? First, I thought let's talk about agile development, right? Very high level on what Agile is, right? But I don't think it would make sense for everyone unless you can know what Agile is, right? So I'm going to approach this from a point of view that you are my friend, and then you are asking me, hey Zumi, how can I launch my product fast, right? So what I'm going to tell you, if you were sitting with me in a coffee shop and then you ask me this question, obviously I wouldn't say, hey, look at Agile is blah, blah, whatever it is, right? I want to give you like step by step, okay, let's do this, right? You're my friend, I'm going to show you exactly what I've done, and this is how it is, right? And this is what we're going to do now, today, right? We're going to do a step by step of how actually we can launch a product fast. If you want to read about Agile, you can Google it up. It's a lot of massive things to read, so I don't really care so much about it. I care about launching product, not so much is Agile or waterfall or whatever it is, right? And let's look at what's our plan for today, right? We're going to touch a bit on Agile values because I think it's important. We don't really care so much about dive deep into Agile. And then we start looking at steps. I'll talk about what things need to be done for you to launch a product fast. And then in between that, so we're going to have a break, because if you don't ask question, I'm just going to stop and force you to ask question, right? I'm not going to talk because that's crazy. Yeah, so we're going to have a quick break with Q&A if you ask some more questions. And then we're going to talk about scaling down to MVP, minimal viable product, or even some of you might call it prototype. And then we can what we call board, and how we do iterations with Agile development. Sounds cool? I think like you can do this? No? Nobody cares? Fine, like I don't really care. Right, so what else do we have? Yeah, a lot of examples I'm going to put up. I don't really have it in my slide. So if you are online and see a bunch of you with your laptops on, you could just go ahead and Google up all the sites I'm going to talk about and we use as example. Be online as much as possible, and better start asking questions. Why are people taking photos of me and not asking questions? Okay, Jamal. All right. So the expectation is after you're done with this workshop, right, you would know how to launch a product fast, right? You would know exactly what you need to do in order to launch, right? That's my expectation during this talk. Unless you have different expectation, you better say it now so we can tell you the talk, or just go with this. Anybody? Okay, no. So if you want to go and really be freaking rich launching a startup, then probably that's not the expectation of this talk. It's just launching a product. It could fail, like one we talked just now, the Youth Echo. But it could also be successful, like the Groupsmore.com just now, right? Okay. So let's start with a few assumptions. My assumption is you guys here want to launch a product. My assumption that a bunch of you guys say, when I say guys, it actually means male and female. Try to be sexist. Bunch of you guys actually want to launch a product fast, and you are probably founders. Like, if you're not, just move your head like that. Then kind of like, who are not founders? Yeah, that's one guy over there. Probably a technical person. Yeah, I would assume that you are quite new at this, right? So we're gonna go into a very use all the layman terms as much as possible. We're not gonna use any jargon as much as possible, unless we have to, right? So that's the assumption, right? If I'm wrong, better say it now. I mean, because like once the trains move, there's no way. Okay. Okay. Good. All right. And a few disclaimers before we start. 10 minutes and we haven't started yet. A few disclaimers before we start. I'm not a certified Agile practitioner. I'm also not a certified Scrum Master or whatever certification. I hate certification, so I don't really care about those certifications. So really what I want to share is my experience of launching a product, right? It could be a wrong way of doing things, but this is how we're doing it. The most important is what are the Agile value that we're trying to use across when we launch a product, right? So if there's a Scrum Masters out there and say, hey, that's not Agile, kind of thing, just don't say that. Just keep quiet. You can tweet me out and then you see, okay, now I learned my lesson. Okay, somebody say hi. That's not a question. Right. Let's move on to Agile values, right? We're just going to talk a high-level concept about the values that we feel important. And by the end of the talk, I'm going to talk about more values that I feel really useful when developing this product, right? So this is what's textbooks values when you talk about Agile, right? By the end of this talk, we're going to talk about values that I really feel strongly about. Okay, first, they favor individual interactions over processes and tools, right? What does it really mean? Does anybody have an idea? I know nobody's going to answer. I'm just going to ask just to fulfill the requirement of having a workshop. Right, but seriously, anybody want to answer that? Yep.
Customer focus or customer focus instead of the processes. People focus on people rather than the processes.
Yeah. Yes, that's kind of like exactly what's written there. Focus on individuals. Right. Yeah. You're correct there, right? So we really focus on people and how we communicate with people, right? How we have an efficient communication when we develop a product, rather than have a bunch of processes that you need to follow and specific tools that you need to use, right? So you're correct there, right? So we don't really care so much about processes. This fits me really well, right? Maybe not for some people, maybe Agile is not for everyone, but it fits me really well because I like the chaos there. I like to talk a lot with people when we develop something. I don't like reading a requirement and build stuff, right? I like to look at, okay, what are we going to build? And then start talking to people, okay, what actually do you mean by building this, right? Really understanding why we do certain things, right? So we focus on that. A developer would talk to the founders, to the product owners a lot, right? So it's not just like, hey, here's 5,000, build me this app, right? This is what I want. It's really not like that, right? It's really like, here's 5,000, maybe you're going to top up a bit more, maybe not, but here's 5,000, let's build this thing together, right? So you and the developer are actually building this together. So it's not just like, build this for me and I'm the owner here, and then all let's graduate. And, all right. And then we also favor working software over comprehensive documentation, right? This is kind of like, obviously you favor working software, right? But some processes are not really focusing on this. They're really focusing on having a proper documentation before you actually start doing something, right? But we don't really care about that. We really care about launching product as soon as possible, especially if you're a startup, right? We're talking about a startup context here, right? You're going to launch as soon as possible to validate your ideas. So it's not really like, maybe if you're NASA, then probably you want to plan the whole way through, because once you send into the moon or Mars, there's no way you can iterate back, right? So let's not talk about that context. We're talking about launching a startup here, right? Okay, the next question for that is fine. Let's move on to the next one. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation, right? So this is almost similar with the initial values that we have just now, right? Collaborate closely with the customer, right? So the developers and the product owners really working on this together, right? So we don't really, just talk about what you should deliver and what you should pay me and when deadlines and whatnot. So we don't really care so much about that, because deadline kind of important, but we really focus on really building things together, right? Because that will, save your time a lot in the future when you're working with this. All right. Responding to change over following a plan. Similar to the NASA example just now, we don't really care about change so much, right? In fact, what I normally tell people over at Refresher, the company where I work with, right? I don't really know what we're going to build in the next 3 months, right? And I'm the CTO there, right? It's going to lead the development team, but I don't really know what we're going to build in the next 3 months. In fact, sometimes I don't even know what we're going to build in the next 1 month, right? I'm going to have a general idea where the direction that we're going, but specific things that we're going to build, like, I don't know, right? And a lot of things changed last time based on once you launch something, then you iterate, so, right? And then a lot of things change. So we expect this thing to happen, right? So really focus on responding to change rather than have one specific plan, deliver something between certain deadline, and being really rigid about it, right? So we are very fluid. If you have, you want to change something, if it still makes sense because you talk about it, right? If it makes sense, then you do it, right? If it doesn't make sense, then you fight like, no, I'm not going to do it because of whatever the reason it is, right? A lot of communication still. That's still very important. All right. So how's that so far? The values, does it make sense to you guys? Good? We'll say good, yes, thank you. Okay, I only need one validation, that's good enough. And let's go to the steps. So this is me sitting in a cafe, yes?
You said about the fourth point, right?
Yep.
Regarding to paper, the third one was customer collaboration against contract negotiations.
Yes.
What do you really mean by that?
Yeah.
So what I mean is like, don't care so much about contracts. So let's say, how many of you guys actually tried to get a grant, for example, right here? Okay, one. It's good for you. Did you get a grant? Okay, right. So, so normally you would have this contract that say you need to deliver certain things by a certain time, right? But chances are once you launch something, right, a lot of things are going to change. When people start using it, a lot of things are going to change. You see, like whatever your assumption back then doesn't even work anymore, right? So you want to collaborate closely with the customers, like, hey, you know what, it doesn't work, let's change it this way. I'm not going to follow this, right? I'm not going to say that I'm going to spend 45 man days building this because it doesn't make sense anymore. Do you want to switch to something else? So this kind of communication that we have, right? So it's not really like too rigid, strict. So your contract probably something that very, maybe like charged on hourly rate, for example, instead of full project rate, right? When you're working with a developer, so then you are more flexible.
Just saying on a customer point of view can apply rather than having a fixed contract saying that you have to do it in this period of time. You're saying that let's work together so that we can establish a contract or
Yeah, so the contract is still there, just not too rigid, it's not too fixed like what are the actual things that you need to deliver, right? It's more like, okay, we're going to work together and these are the costs, blah, blah, whatever it is. We're going to work together for 3 months or whatever it is, and we will build this thing together. So this is a point of view, let's say you are a founder and then you are hiring a developer, for example. Like, so you can look at it in that context. You're going to ask a question, right? With the stakeholders. So she's asking is what's my experience on launching a product, and what can you define what stakeholders mean? Okay, so stakeholders means people who give you money to do stuff. Okay, gotcha. And yes, so probably going to talk about a grant perspective maybe, right? So yeah, I have experience on launching a product with grant, but it failed because the contract was too long, right? We need to deliver something within 1 year, but a lot of things will change in 1 year, right? So that's why it doesn't work. That's why now all the new grants that we see here kind of makes more sense because they're looking at short term, it's like 3 months, 6 months kind of things, right? Not really so much of the whole year or 2 years, right? And we're talking about the seed grant, like the first money that you get to launch a product, right? So when we talk about that, then yeah, so my experience with something that 1 year long to deliver doesn't work. Because for us, even we lose the motivation to actually, need to deliver something slowly because this is what we decided earlier. We cannot really change and do something else, right? So, yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah, all the paperwork bullshit and whatnot, yeah, we need to submit. But, but yeah, so I don't really like paperwork, right? I really like building product. So that's why I don't really like going for grants. Unless you have someone that actually wants to do the paperwork with me, then it's fine, right? But yeah, I mean, if you talk about filling up paperwork, then definitely you need to do this. Even if you are not going for a grant, talking with VCs, for example, then you still need to do this. It's something that you can run away from it, but yeah, I don't really like it personally. So I hope someone else will do it most of the time. So I partner with people who love doing operations, because then they could do all this stuff. Any more questions? Where were we just now? Did I? Steps? Steps? Correct, right? Steps. All right, so now you're going to build this product. After all these introductions, 23 minutes introductions, now we're going to start actually building the product. I'm not going to talk about how you actually come up with the ideas. There's a lot of things out there, right? Try to validate your ideas, your lean startup, or whatever it is. Like, my assumption is like you kind of know what you're going to build already. You already somehow validated these ideas and try to make it happen. So you just want to build it, right? Now you're going to build, because we're going to talk about launching prototype fast, right? We're not talking about validating your ideas. I just assume you already validated your ideas, right? So first thing what we normally do is to establish goals and non-goals, right? So here I am, I want to talk to my developer on things that we need to build. But before that, we're just going to establish the goals. Goal is actually, everyone's there going to decide, okay, what this app should be, right? It could be based on your business prerequisite, business requirement. It could be on your technical requirement. It could be anything. It could be, this is whatever you want the app to be, right? And then, so you have goals, right? Things that you want to build will be within these circles, right? And then you're also going to establish non-goals, which is very important, because once you start developing something, you will have tendency to build more stuff. You have these brilliant ideas and hey, let's just build this because it's really cool, or because this happen a lot, like all the time, all the freaking time. Like even when I build my own product, and then we are very clear what we're gonna do, suddenly tomorrow, there's a flash of ideas like, hey, let's build this, right? So non-goal, the base of non-goal is to set these boundaries, right? You probably have a lot of ideas of things that you're gonna build, but should you build it now, or should you build it later, right? If all these new ideas that come in fits within your goals, then yeah, you should build it, maybe, if it makes sense. If it's actually out of your goals boundary, which is non-goals, then you're just not building it. An example of non-goals probably like pixel perfect website, right? You want it to look exactly the same on all the browsers, right? On Firefox, on IE and whatnot. That's always a non-goal for me, because like I'm sure they're going to look different everywhere, right? Another non-goal is probably like mobile optimized app, right? Maybe I just want the site to be up there, even if you open with your mobile phone, it still is going to look the same rather than optimized for mobile. That could be a non-goal. It could be a lot of things, right? So when people actually, when during the development process, you suddenly have an ideas to build certain things, and then it's actually a non-goal, then you can easily make this decision, let's not build it. Let's focus on a goal, things that actually make sense for us to launch, right? Okay, so once we establish the goals, we're going to establish roles. Roles are actually people who are going to use the website, right? A normal role is, let's say, if you go to sales.com, the roles will be guests, people who come and read the news. Another role probably admin, people who come in and actually create the news. And maybe that's just it, right? Or if you go to, I don't know, what other website do you have in mind? Facebook, for example, right? Then you have guests, you have user who already log in, right? You probably have different level of admins within Facebook, right? Also, you have Facebook page owner. You have all the crazy shit within Facebook. I don't even remember what it is. So, so when you establish these roles, then you can know who actually gonna use your site, who gonna actually use your app, right? Even if it's a mobile app, right? Who actually gonna use it? Typically, there's two type of roles: the user and the login user, and maybe an admin who do certain things on the website. That's the most typical website, right? But chances are depends on how you build an app. It could be a lot more, right? And this is important because after this, we're going to talk about actually, what actually we're going to talk about? Talk about, let's roll. Yeah, activities that this user can actually do, right? Then be easier for you to actually do this, right? And activities can be something very high level. It's like user can, there's a login function for users. There's a admin download report. I don't know what else we can do. User can view images, certain type of high level activities that you feel you're gonna your website should do. All right, I'm not gonna talk more about that because it's Q&A time. Haha. Yes, that's very tiring. All right, so who have questions? I have a few example questions there. I can answer if you want, but maybe not unless you ask them. Right, so we have questions.
So yeah, just to be clear, when you talk about when you say roles, you mean roles for the people that are using your app.
App, yeah.
So you're not talking about roles within the
No. So we're talking about the app alone, right? So this is outside of context of developers. So really like who actually using your website, right? So then you can actually establish what they can do, right?
how do you actually find that?
Sorry?
How do you define the roles that customers will use? You actually put yourself in the customer's shoes or how?
Yeah, so you can know like what this app should do, right? If this is a news app, then you can know like there must be someone going to read it. There must be someone going to post the news. So it seems to me like there's two roles there, right? Editors and users, right? Or if you're going to build, shit, I'm not like lost of all, what are apps that people use? Instagram, for example, right? Then you can know that there must be someone who already log in, they're going to post pictures. There's also someone who not log in is going to view these pictures. So there's like two type of role. Maybe there's also an admin that's going to moderate stuff, right? Or if you talk about forum, for example, then you have different type of roles. You have moderators, you have admins, you have guests, and then you have a normal members, right? So look at the context of what are the apps supposed to do, then you could know that what actually the roles should be. It shouldn't be that hard. I mean, once you look at it, it's just very natural progressions. Consumer pains, problem that we want to solve. By pains, you mean problem that we want to solve. PAINS, right? Okay. Okay. So, customer problem that we want to solve. Do I think about it? Sometimes I don't care because depends on what I'm going to build, right? If I'm going to build something that really going to solve your problem, then I would think about it. If I'm just going to be something that's just for fun, then probably I don't really care about solving problem, right? Let's say you guys familiar with Yo app, right? Okay, maybe not. So Yo app is an app that could just send Yo to another person. It's not solving anything, really, right? It's just like building something for fun. Sometimes we just build a pointless app, right? App that's kind of like doesn't even make sense just because we feel, just because we can, right? So you're just going to build that. Maybe you could make money, maybe it's not, right? So it depends on what actually you're trying to solve, right? If you want to solve a customer problem, yeah, definitely you need to think about it, right? From the context of the customer, what actually you need to solve, right? On what level actually you need to solve, right? Let's say when we talk about the other startup that are working with, it's called Bill Please, right? The problem that we're trying to solve is how to make payment easy. how to help SME to actually collect payment online, right? So that's a specific problem that we want to solve. So we think about that, right? But if you want to build something that's not really solving anything, then probably you're not thinking about it. It really depends on your app. Right, more questions. I'm gonna give you. I don't have anything to give, so I'm just gonna give you answer.
Yeah.
It's really up to you, right? If you feel that you should go, then you do it. I'm not gonna say that don't do market research. I'm saying that if you feel it's necessary to do it, then you do it, right? There's no clear answer to this because okay, this is out of context of launching product fast. This is more like validating your ideas first, right? But say I'm just gonna touch a bit on that, right? So if you're just gonna build something for fun, then probably I'm not gonna do a market research about it. Or maybe I would, right? Would people like this fun stuff? If I'm building a game app, for example, people love this kind of thing. People love to spend time trying to make sure the birds don't fall down. Yeah, like, so if you want to go in that direction, it's fine. It's completely fine, right? It really depends on you. I don't have a definite answer of should you do market research or not. Steve Jobs probably say no, but I'm not Steve Jobs, so.
After you launch the product, what are the avenues that you use to market the product?
Market, also out of the scope of this talk, but I'm just gonna answer it a bit. Okay, what sort of product are we talking about? Is it like web app or like mobile app?
What you share is more about technical apps. How about those who are non-techy products? How does this help?
Yeah, you know,
when talk about marketing, it's like a whole avenue channel to actually how you're gonna do marketing, right? Really depends on who actually you're trying to market to, right? If you're trying to market to a youth, for example, but not too young, right? Probably like 20 plus and something. Then probably just do a normal Facebook marketing makes a lot of sense. So this is completely is not my domain to do marketing, right? I'm here to teach you how to launch product fast.
So question now, because what you share seems like more for the technical side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sharing how you launch a product and work with technical people.
About how does your sharing benefits for those who are want to launch a product fast but not on the technical side? I believe as a beginner, there are so many of us we like to know that.
Launch a product without technical.
I mean those who are not from the technical, that's why they are sharing methods, Scrum methods, Agile methods.
Yeah, I'm not really sharing Scrum. I'm sharing steps on
how you as a non-technical person could work closely with a technical person, right? So this is what I'm sharing. I'm not sharing from that you are a developer and you want to launch an app, right? So it's more like you are not really non-technical, and now you hire this one guy, a technical guy, right? And then these are the steps that you're going to follow in order to make sure that the technical guy actually going to build what you want, right? So that probably would, the scope's still there in terms of launching. So I'm going to assume that you are a non-technical person, right? And you're going to build a product, right? Maybe a website or a mobile app. And for you to build this, you need to hire a technical person, right? Either freelancer or maybe your friends that are going to come and work with you, or just going to hire someone, right? So when you have this technical person, these are the steps that you're going to follow in order for you to work closely with this technical person. Would that like something that you want to learn?
Actually, I understand this, but I'm trying to learn this. I thought as a beginner, you also be able to learn the steps for those who are not much technical. It's all about technical development. How about when you launch, for example, it's not out technical. Does this process help?
Okay, I don't really get that when you say launch a product that's not part of it technical. Right. Okay. I have no idea. I never launched a product that's non-technical, right? So the things that I launch are normally actually things that I build is technical.
I think I can help you with that because I use the method here to launch a product which is not web apps or mobile apps. So
Right.
you can use this. So basically how I do it, I find the simplest thing that you can test and you want to test it out really, really fast. So let's say if you want to sell t-shirt, for example. So the most important thing you want to test is to sell it first. So you want to see if the market is there, even though if you don't have the product. So you want to test really fast. Yeah, does it make sense?
Yeah. And to add on, I'm also not a web-based company.
Okay.
No apps yet. But we're all about services. But what I really like from your sharing just now is about the focus part.
Right.
About the value part, which is to focus on the people outcome and the why,
Right.
rather than just the system process because it may not be available now. So focusing on how to solve a certain solution.
Okay, so thanks for sharing. So going back to that, if you're not really working with technical person on launching a product, then you could just use the core values and how actually to build your product, right? Maybe the steps doesn't make sense as much, but the value is still there. I think regardless of it's a technical applications or not, this value is still critical, right? On how having a good communications with people that are working on the product, right? Yes. How to set. Right. You just think about first from the business perspective, maybe, right? What actually you want to achieve. We want to build a product that could make people register. We want to build a product that is gonna be as big as Facebook. That could be like one of the goals, right? Or it could be something very technical. We're gonna build a mobile app. That's one of the goal, right? Or we're gonna build just a web app. That could be one of the goal, right? So when you think about your ideas of what actually you want to build, then you can know, okay, these are some sort of things I really want. This could be part of the goal, right? It's like high level goals there, right? Or maybe you could also say, I want to build an app that could scale, that could have 1 million users. So this app should be able to handle 1 million users. That could be your goal too. All right? Yes. Oh, finally, a mic. So I don't need to stand there anymore.
Hello.
Seems
Since
like I
you're
track
a
a lot of
technical
person.
person saying that you must have a collaboration within a techie guy and a non-techie guy, right? Okay. I used to do codings back those days, and I really hated after some time. You know,
It's a sad.
because the only reason is because I felt that okay, I understand the concepts and technology is changing so rapidly. I was not able to follow that because I had so many other things that I wanted to do.
Okay.
Right? And when you come the other side of the coin, not as a techie person, but you come other side of the coin, you feel that how do we really work with these techies again? Because I'm now, although I understand the subject matters, but when we go in detail, it's kind of complex, right? So as you as what in the technical point of view, right? How do you encourage? I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs are here. How do you encourage a non-techie guy to work with you? You say you have to do collaborations, right? So how do you encourage this kind of people to come forward and make this collaboration happen?
Right.
That's one of the steps, I believe.
Okay. So if we go back into actually finding this person that you're going to work with, right? Normally, what I would do specifically is I would work with the technical person who also understand product, right? So I would actually go out there and find, hey, you are a so good developer, I'm just going to work with you, right? I'm probably going to go out there and find a people who actually probably already launched their own freelance project, maybe, or own part-time project. So people who can understand product, right? In fact, when we hire this type of people. So it's less friction when you talk with product persons, right? And they could come up with their own ideas on how the products could work, for example. So it's not really just, hey, here, be my bitch and build this thing, right? It's more like, let's build this together. It's always about that, right? Building everything together, right? And once you talk about someone that's already understand product, you know when they build something, there's a lot of care into it, right? They really care about the product, and this is the most important thing when you talk about building a product, right? Have a lot of care. So the product could be something that doesn't make sense for other people, but for people who are building it, there's a lot of love, there's a lot of care when actually building it, right? So it's not just I'm a robot, I'm going to build this for you. It's more like I really love this product, I'm going to build it and make it happen, right? So I want to look for that type of persons in work. And the good thing is there's a lot of developers out there who are actually this type of individuals. So they're just like cross-functional developers, you can say, right? Or you talk about front-end developers who really understand product, because that's really important, right? If your team is big, then probably you're going to have a few that are just hardcore, full-on good developers who can build everything fast, right? Then it's fine, right? But if you're just going to work on the early stage, work with 1 or 2 developers, then you should work with people who understand product. Then the conversation could make a lot of sense when you talk about why we should be certain things or why we shouldn't be certain things, right? Yes, got far. Thank you for a loud voice.
So you mentioned things like all the values that you put in, like things like how do you work with the technical guys, some of that. I think a question that would be in the minds of a lot, most, if not all, over here would be how fast is fast and how fast is too fast. Because to be honest, the pace that you go for within a set time frame or timeline would actually affect how your product actually ends up.
Right.
How fast is fast? Let's see. So we're going to talk about scaling down, right? So the example I gave you earlier, one product that we launched within 8 hours, another product we launched within 3 weeks, right? So it's really up to you. How do you feel what is fast, right? Because there's a lot of variables around it, right? Let's say there's only someone already in the market, right? And you want to beat this person, and you know the specific thing is going to happen maybe in the next 2 months, then your fast should be launch something within these 2 months, right? But I would normally say, typically, I will launch the site within a month, right? A new product within a month. That's kind of give a nice leeway to work with the developers to churn out, fix all the bugs and whatnot, right? You probably could launch something within 24 hours. It probably is buggy. Or you could launch something that you just take time, maybe launch it within 3 to 4 weeks, and it's actually good enough, right? Right. So, and how are you going to get there, right? You have to scale down. Right? When you have all these activities, you're going to look at all the things that you're going to build and then say no to almost 90% of it, right? And just focus on things that actually matters, right? Things that actually required for the app to launch, right? So it could be something like you actually have a bunch of things to build, but you say no to most of it, right? This example is actually a site that actually what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to show products. You can buy products, right? But there's a lot of other things that I probably don't want to release on the first iteration yet, on the first MVP, right? I don't want people to search. I don't care about searching. I just want people to show the product. I don't care about show reviews, so I just remove reviews, right? So a lot of things that initially activities that you feel that people should do, but maybe it's fine to launch the app without having this activity, then just screw it, just throw away, right? And then you can nail down to all the minimal stuff that needed. From that, you could see, okay, I just want people to do one thing. Probably you can launch this within a week, right? Or maybe, you know what, we have a bit more time, we can launch this within 2 weeks. Let's add another feature to make sure it's more solid, right? So you can look at it on that perspective, right? Either removing the activity first, or look at from the timeline basis, right? But we normally just remove a lot of things and just make sure that only things that matters are actually there. And you have to be really ruthless about this, right? A good article, a good story require good editors, right? A lot of things actually being removed. When I want to do this talk, there's a lot of things I want to share, but I'm trying to be good speaker, so I remove a bunch of stuff and things that only make sense. Right. So someone asked, what shoes are those? This is Clark. I like these shoes. It's like you can buy them from Clark. Someone else asks, is documentation important while product at MVP stage? I would say not so much. What important is for your code to be self-documented. If you're talking about building a technical product, that is, right? Or your flow is self-documented, like your workflow of doing stuff is just like makes sense. Maybe you would need a certain documentation on certain critical things, but yeah, normally I wouldn't really care so much about documentation at early stage. Are you strict with creating user stories to tie roles and activity? Well, if the story is not tied to any roles, then I don't know how the story could be there. Right. So yeah. So each story should tie to a user role at least. Like I don't know, what are example of stories are not tied to user roles to roles? I'm sorry? I didn't share? Oh right. Oops, don't have it. This one. Okay. Yeah. Too fast, man, too fast. Okay. Enough questions. Let's move on. So now you can do like 48 minutes. Now you already remove a bunch of activities, right? So you only have like few activities that you want to make sure you already scale down to few activities that you feel necessary for the app to launch. Necessary means it will achieve whatever you want it to achieve, right? It could be like you just be out there, or it could be like fulfilling certain business requirement. Doesn't matter, it's up for you to decide, right? Now you're going to break down these activities into user stories. Right? This is part of a currency of Agile, or maybe Scrum. I'm not too sure, but this is what we use. It's something very humanized. So this is part of stories that user can log in, for example, or user can read a news, user can buy something, admin can generate report, admin can do certain things. So it's something that very humanized, right? The reason why we write it this way, from the activity just now, we just break it down. The reason why we write it this way is make it easy for us to test. So you as a founder, as a non-technical person, right? How do you test an app, right? Then you're going to look at things that people be. User can log in. Oh, I can go to the site and I can log in. So this feature is done, right? As an admin, I can go to this site and then download the report. Then it's done, right? So it's easy for people to actually test. So you tie all these stories to the roles that you have just now. I'm answering your questions, and yeah, that's it. Okay. Q&A, what? This is so short, really? Yeah, missed slide. Okay. How many stories should we write? I don't know, depends on your activities. Which story should be done first? Depends on how you're going to prioritize them. So normally what I would do is like, when you have a story, you're going to set priorities like high or low, right? And then you start ranking them. These are things that should be done first, right? And then we can look at, can we build all this within a week? Let's say we're going to launch within a week. Or can we build all this within 2 weeks, right? And then we're just going to focus on high-level, high-priority stories, right? And if you don't care and you want all the features, then I don't care too. I mean, just go ahead and do it. You're going to fail, but that's fine with me. Okay, someone asked, how different is it in early days, 3-man team to hitting tag at SAYS to being a CTO of RevAsher? Wow, that's a very personal question. 3-man team is easier to manage, obviously. And no, really, I like big teams, right? I like big teams because then I don't need to do much. I just need to trust them to actually deliver. I hope that answered your questions. So that's what the different being like I don't code much anymore. That goes a very personal answer to this question. Unless if you are expecting different answer, better let me know. Okay, questions about stories, and yes.
Extend our system. What problem you should?
What problem? Why are you expecting problem early on? Right, problems. Sometimes we have a wrong architecture, right? And this could be a problem, but most of the time, the technical person will look at it as a good challenge to have, right? We grow with a growing pain, right? Because we want to deliver something fast, we probably decided on certain things that make sense at that point. Maybe instead of building this the way it should be, we're just gonna cut corners a bit and build it this way, right? Because we just wanna prove this, we wanna validate this story, right? Can this app be successful? So suddenly it's become successful, and then you have a bunch of users coming in. So problem would be that, right? Now the architecture that you choose can't really support this new growth that you have, right? So that could be one of the problem, right? Other than that, as long as you have a good communications, when you change things and whatnot, it's still, have a bunch of good communication. There won't really be an issue as much because we expect things to change, right? So the problem is only just certain things are hard to do later when you scale if you choose to cut corners. But really, I don't see it as a problem. It's more like learning experience for the developers. More questions? What time is it? 12. 12. Yes.
Okay. I actually
I want to register my company.
Mm-hmm.
Lately October and this year, and I have my business partner, and I want I want to make my sub project, not the main base project for my company lah. To import my friends fertilizer organic from nearer Gunung Merapi, Yogyakarta. Can I use your Agile, your sheet product points? Can I use the service?
Right. So this is back to the same question, right? If it's not a technical product, right? You can still use the core values that we have, right? Really, when I mean, if you think rationally about it, right? When you're working in a team and you don't have a good communication with the team, how can the team be functional, right? And this is part of the Agile value, right? To have a good face-to-face communications, right? So you probably could use this core value as a baseline on how you operate as a company. This could be part of your company culture, right? To actually have good communication all the time, right? You probably don't really need to do all the steps because that's really if you work with a technical person, right? But you could also do it when you think about it, right? Probably you're not talking about building, so you can remove certain things like roles and whatnot, but you can talk about activities that needs to be done and who are actually going to do it, right? But still have a good communication. Okay. Now these activities, probably contacting the suppliers, right, should be done by this person. And what are you doing about? Are you doing? Is it done? So you can actually use the Scrum to do this, right? There's a lot of others. Agile practice that you could use. That's all of them I'm not really familiar with, so I cannot really teach you about that. But you can Google it, you can search it up and see all these other Agile practices that make sense for non-technical development. Like, I don't know, shit, I don't can think of anything. But, all right, yes. How I monetize my product?
Your experience in developing their product,
Yep.
how you monetize your product to make it fast for users to access, something like that.
Right. So basically, how I make money, right? That's what you're talking about. So, I'm not from New York, so you're not comfortable talking about revenues, but no, really. Depends. So on the Bill Please app that we build, it's really about charging the customer, right? Or if we talk about sales.com, it's not directly charging the user because nobody is paying anything, right? So we have a different way of making money, which is like, you know, probably selling sponsored posts, for example. Yeah, so these are the type of app that I'm working with, right? There's also a social sharing site where our client will pay us to promote their site, right? Yeah, I mean, this is what I build, right? For your app, it could be anything like, you know, I don't know, I can't think of whatever it is. I hope that answer your question. Yeah, I don't know why you want to know that, but I hope that answer your question. All right, more question, yes, sir. Right, that's a good question. This is a very tough question to answer. Seems like I cannot think of anything right now. Just keep talking until I come up with something. Well, the criteria is really based on what you want to achieve from launching this app, right? Are you looking at launching this app just to, let's say, get users to be interested in it instead of actually using it? Or actually you launching this product to actually get the user, right? Then you can start choosing, okay, which are features that actually make sense, right? Let's say, for example, sales.com is a news site, right? And then we decided not to put user can read news within the site. That doesn't make sense, right? For the app, for MVP to launch. So maybe for us, the MVP, as long as someone can read something, is fine. Maybe there's no need for admin to log in. Maybe you could just send an email and news created. I don't know, whatever that is, right? As long as the critical function of the app is there, then I would consider that, okay, these are the things I should keep. If it's not that critical, maybe it's fine for user not to be able to search the site yet. It's not that critical, right? So I can remove it first, right? Just focus on things that make the apps what the app should be, right? If a news app, it should be something people can read news. That's at the core of it. This is the most minimal things that you should have. Someone can read news. How the news created doesn't matter. Maybe automated, like I don't know, right? So probably you can throw away certain function like admin or editors and just focus on user can create news. That's pretty much how we decide on what things you're going to keep and what things you're going to throw out, right? And also you're going to plug in time to it too, right? If you want it to launch it now, then probably, hey, let's just build a static page and normal HTML page, and then every time just create a new page, maybe, right? We good with time? What time is supposed to finish? Nobody answered me that question. What time is supposed to finish? Nobody knows. Yes? 12? 12:30, okay.
General as building MVP. So building MVP, like especially technical product, you would either just build from scratch or build on a platform.
Right.
WordPress or some stuff like that. But then, like if we want to build MVP fast, and usually you go to a platform, but some platform will need your customizability, which will require you to remake when you scale up. So what's the consideration when you're building MVP?
Yeah, for me,
one thing is what is fast, right? So if platform is fast, then probably I would choose platform. But secondly, most important part, like who actually I have by my side. Is my team familiar with this platform, right? What are our strong skill sets, right? They say now with RefShare, we have a bunch of sites run on WordPress, but our team are really a Ruby developer, right? So new sites, we probably don't want to build it with WordPress because it's faster for us to build a new Ruby app. So it's really based on your team and how you're going to sustain this development, right? Platform makes sense most of the time, but team's going to last forever, so you're going to stick with the team, whatever the team is good at. All right. Let's move on to the next one. yeah, this is the board. Seems like we like divert away from what we're talking right now. This is very straightforward. I don't think I should explain it. Whatever stories that you have just now that you want to build, you're going to put inside to do. And when someone is start working on it, it's going to be on doing. And when it's done, it's going to be on done, right? So if it's not a technical product, you can also do the same thing, right? What are activities that you're not supposed to do? Who are doing it? So everything is clear on one board, what actually happening in the company, right? And this is a very, at the baseline, this is what we have, right? But if you use different apps, for example, you probably could have a more extended flow. This is what we normally use. A story could be unstarted, not started yet, and once someone working on it, it started, and we know actually who's working on it. So it gives a clarity for the whole team to know what's happening, right? You can have a heartbeat feelings about what's going on with the team. And once it's completed, like someone already completed, one is delivered to be accepted or rejected by the founders or the product owners, right? If it's rejected, then you go back to unstarted, then you ask why you get rejected, and then you work on it, right? Maybe after rejected, and then you start to talk more about it, then you realize, actually it should be accepted, then you're just gonna accept it, right? So this is a more extended flow of how we're doing stuff, instead of just doing the board. Because we have remote developers, if you work with remote developers, having a whiteboard doesn't make sense much, right? Okay, where are we at right now? Boards. All right, finally. So these are values that we already internalized within our team. I'd like to share with you guys because I think it's really important. But before that, let's look is we have a question. Can you share your experience launch thing fast with Youthsays? Skip that question. How many experienced paid developers on your Groupsmore 2 week? Okay, how many developers that we have on Groupsmore team when we launched during the 3 weeks? There's only me and another front-end guy. So that's 2. Okay. I read, I don't know, Ajmal, I'm not going to answer your question. It's too tough. Okay, done the question. Let's go to the values. Can ask me later. All right. So communication, that's very important. Like asking a lot of questions, that's a good communication. So then I kind of know what actually you guys want to know rather than me just staying here and talk about random shits, right? So yeah, this is very important for us. In fact, within our team, we over-communicate. We have WhatsApp group. We have Skype that on all the time. We have Slack, which is like RSC, a chatting app. We also have email, obviously. We have Facebook group. We have phones and SMS. So people communicate like crazy, right? So in the team themselves, like sitting in front of each other, but still chatting constantly about things that we are working on and things we are building, right? And this is really important because if something went wrong, you want to know about it early on, right, rather than later. So people communicate a lot. If you want to build something, you ask a lot of questions first before actually building it, right? This is very important. Really understand why you build stuff rather than just building it. So this is crucial for us, right? Having a efficient communication. And because efficient communication provides clarity, it's kind of obvious. And another thing that we have here is if you are a founder, right, you need to be able to be this person who provide clarity about the applications, about your projects, about your company, right? The people who work with you, the developers or other non-technical people, must be able to go to you, ask a question, and you would give them a clear answer on why you do certain things and what are the directions that you're going at, right? If you don't have this clarity, then things will definitely fail, especially a small startup. So this is really, really important. When we build something, there's a lot of questions that we're going to ask about these specific features, right? We want to be able to ask the product owner, the founders, what actually you mean by this, right? And why do you want us to build this? You must have that clarity, right? And we also welcome change requests, even if it's last minute. Sometimes we bitch about it, but that's just for fun. Most of the time we just go ahead and build it, because if we understand it actually makes sense after we talk about it and we know this change request makes a lot of sense, right? And we just have to build it, right? Because it makes a lot of sense. If we talk about it and then realize that it doesn't make sense, then you're just going to keep talking about it more, right? And say, okay, maybe we shouldn't build this now. Maybe we should build it later. Maybe you don't want this change request now, right? Can we actually push this change request later after we launch this product, or whatever it is, right? So we talk about it a lot, but we expect change requests to come, right? And the team are actually self-organizing. People who work with me can operate without any leaders around, right? It's a very flat organization. So we want this. We want people to actually able to make decisions on their own, right? This can be really helpful when you have a lot of clarity on what actually you want to do, so you can make decision by yourself rather than asking someone, right? So the team has to be this, not to be told what to do, but they have to decide what they want to do and when they're going to do it and how they're going to do it, right? Again, this is the final piece of the values. We have like 10 minutes. Care. I cannot stress more about this. People should care a lot whatever they do. Even if you're not building an app, you're working on something, right? You should care a lot about your job, right? Or else that, I don't know, how do you live, doing things that you don't really care about? That's just crazy. I cannot brain that. Yeah. So you should really care about whatever that you're building, whatever you're working on. Hire people who really care about the product, not just about themselves or their career progressions. It's really about how can you deliver a great job, right? How can you deliver a great app? So, care, the most important thing. All right, last Q&A before we go to thank you. Yes.
So building product fast, you have to pick out a lot of things, functionality.
Yes.
What's your say on in terms of for the technical product, app or web applications, about the code quality over shipping product fast? Like for example, test-driven development or even writing code properly. How do you think the importance would be, and do you need to sacrifice that in order to grow product?
Yeah, so code quality is something that we care a lot, right? So when you talk about people who really care about their work, they will care a lot about code quality, right? You probably would cut corners in certain cases, right? Like, should we build this? Should we just use an external service, right? Maybe it's better to use external service, then you can just maintain your code quality just on the minimal scope, right? But as much as possible, code quality is something that we care about, right? Writing tests is something that we care a lot about, because we're building for the future, right? We're not just building for now kind of thing, right? So we want to be able to maintain this code base. So either you want to write tests first or you write tests later, I don't really care, as long as there's a test to cover when we want to make more changes in the future. And test is really important because you change things a lot. So you want to be able to have this assurance that your app actually is stable when you make changes, right? That being said, you probably won't have 100% tests. I probably only test on certain things. Depends on whatever threshold that you believe, that you agree within your team, then you just decide on that. But yeah, we don't really like to cut corners on code quality. We want to launch fast, let's use different service if we don't want to build ourselves. That's kind of like mentality to have. Throw a bit money on it, use outside service. Yes?
From the scenario of developing an app, right? From the technical perspective, how important is it to have patent And also, at what stage do you patent your technical perspective of the development?
Right.
This is something that I have no interest on, so I don't really care so much about patent. Sorry, I
Can
cannot
answer your question. Yes.
if they don't have profit.
Right, right.
Right. So we are operating on a basis that people work because of monetary reasons, but not everybody works based on just monetary reasons, right? Some people just want to go out there and build great apps, right? So just push them for that, right? Instead of just money, this is the things you're going to build, things that you really want to be proud of, things that are going to be out there, and people are going to know that you are building it. So I'm going to approach it on that level, right? So these are things that you build. Probably you're just going to have your whatever your salary is, right? But the street cred, the reputation behind it, is some things that, priceless, right? Something that's more than just money. Of course, it's good to have stocks and money, but yeah, there are other things that people are looking at. When we hire initially, it's always about selling the dream of what it's going to be. It's a bit harder now because there's a lot of companies out there and people are giving competitive salary and stock option and all these crazy perks, right? So it's a bit harder to do this now, but still, it's something that can be done, right? You can sell the dreams because you are really working on it together, right? So really building this thing together, not so much of I'm hiring you and then you're going to build it. So yeah, you can still follow on that route. All right, who else? See if people have a question here. If you want a self-organizing team who can do things themselves without asking, doesn't that contradict the value of efficient communication? No, obviously not. Because you talk about it, right? You choose what you're going to do, and then you talk about it. So I don't see how that's contradict the efficient communications value, right? I give you freedom to choose what you want to do, as long as you let me know, you let the team know, not me. Like the team, everybody knows that what you're doing, then we're fine. I'm not going to shove down your throat and say, hey, build this. You're going to decide what actually you're going to build, right? I'm probably going to ask you nicely, can you build this? But if you don't want, you can choose not to, right? What if you made an app using Agile methodology, then find out later it can't scale? What do you do then? Then we figure out a way to scale it. That's a interesting challenge to have. This is a growing pain. It's something that we really look forward to. Right now, since we already launched quite a few apps, scaling is not so much an issue for us, but back then it is, right? When you look at our site back then, especially the old one, Youthsays.com, there are a lot of times when you go there and then you see an error page, you say growing pains. Mostly because we don't know what to do, right? We know the site's down, shit, we don't know what to do about it. We're still figuring things out. But now we can already build for scale. So we can still be agile, depends on what level of knowledge you have, right? It doesn't really mean that being agile, you can't scale, right? If you're being agile, but you still build for scale, then you could also do that, right? That's what we're doing right now. Right, that's enough question from Twitter. Any more question from outside?
Mm-hmm.
Build something in 24 hours, yeah?
Right. Business plan.
I don't know, depends on what you're gonna do. So this is obviously outside of this scope, right? So this is more like how you're gonna validate your idea first before you actually start building it, right? There's a few methodology out there. I think the most famous right now is like lean startup. I think, right? I'm not really a fan of writing business plan, but if you have to do it for whatever reason, then you have to do it, right? If you just want to try out if it makes sense, then probably you don't really need a business plan, right? You probably just need to know why and kind of how you make money, like how can actually you profit from this, right? Unless you want to go to VCs, for example, or getting grant, then maybe you need a business plan. This depends on your perspective, really, right? If I want to build a product, sometimes just build for fun, I don't really need a business plan, right? And just see out there, throw out there and see what happens. If it works, then it works. If I want more funding, then only I write a business plan. Try to, connect the dots after that instead of doing early on. All right, more question, please. Running away with my idea? I don't. For me, I believe that ideas is cheap, just out there. You can just give idea to other people, right? It's how you execute is the one that matters. But having said that, if you want to stop people from running, probably you need to think about what are their motivation first, right? Why are they running away with your app? Do they want money or what, right? If money is their main motivation, probably you could do something about that early on, right? They say, hey, let's work together. I have this skill set to actually sell this app, and you have the skill set to build it. You could have 50%. Okay, that's crazy. Probably like 10% or 20%, whatever it is, right? Or you pay them a lot of money. It's really, you need to understand what their motivation is. You can't really stop them from running away with your app or with your ideas, right? Even if they already build like half of it, for example, and then they just run away with it, there's no way you can stop them, really, right? Because the way we build things now are very decentralized. They would have all the copies within their machine, right? They could just, disappear with your app and run, right? We always believe that execution that matters, not so much of the ideas. If you look back, example of Groupsmore.com is back during the Groupon clone wars, right? Everybody just cloning the same thing. There's no new innovation there, the same idea, but who actually execute faster, right? So if someone run away with your ideas, screw it, like it's not that important, it's not that crazy, right? You can actually still moving on because you are the one who come up with that, so you understand the essence of this idea. You probably can understand all the fluff behind it. Maybe, I'm just assuming that, right? But yeah, I don't really care about people stealing your idea. In fact, what happened now, I just go out and give random ideas and hopefully people build it, because I don't have time to build it. So hopefully, I think a good ideas should be built by someone else, because that will make the world a better place. Yes? Depends on what problem you're going to solve, right? So you're asking the question like after you launch an MVP, what part you're going to choose? Optimization or adding more features, right? So let's look at what happens, right? If your sites keep going down, maybe your net attrition could be optimization. But if everything's still fine, let's say you only have like 3 users, right? You don't want to optimize yet, right? You probably want to see, okay, let's try out different features and see if people are actually using it, right? So you're going to focus on that direction. But if you actually, after you launch MVP, thousands of users coming in and the site keep going down, then yeah, definitely. So once in second iteration, you're probably going to have different priorities. So you just choose based on whatever your priorities, right? It's nothing is set in stone, like you should do what. Yeah, you do whatever you need to survive, basically.
Right.
You need to ask Joel about that. You don't ask me. Because I built this app. I work with this girl called Joanne. She's one of the best product owners out there. Still working in Groupon, I believe. So we just manage the relationships in between what things you're going to build and what are feedbacks from the sales team. How you reach the merchants, right? That's really on the operation side, which is out of my scope. Like, I don't even know how they manage that, right? Yeah, you could go, you know, when Joel is talking somewhere, you can ask him that question, maybe. All right, more questions. We done? Should we go now? Not yet? No? No clarity, you cannot decide? It's done. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Last question before we, let's see, on Twitter first. Okay, nothing. Last question, no? All right, ladies and gentlemen, my contact details up there. Some of you retweeted me. Thank you for being really patient with me. Some of you are sleepy. I forgive you guys, don't worry about it. All right, bye.